This is Sporting Life.
Well, welcome along to the Sporting Live Racing Podcast Christmas preview. David Orr joined by Ed Chamberlain, David Johnson, Fran Berry and Billy Nash as we gallop through the action on the 26th and 27th of December. But Ed Chamberlain, you're at it again. I've got a list here of people who won't speak to ITV Racing. I've got Henry Daly, I've got Alan King, and I've now got Michael Buckley. What on earth is going on?
He'll speak to ITV Racing. We love Buckers. And listen, I can understand his point of view. It must be so frustrating, firstly, owning such a brilliant horse that you don't get to see very often. Then you have to read so much and listen to so much about your beloved horse. And you know how protective I am about the ITV team, for example, with that quote from Alan King. So I can totally understand him saying what he said. But at the same time, Luke Harvey is entitled to his opinion, for one. And two, this is a horse we haven't seen for a very long time, who's had two dire public gallops, who's had a major operation for colic, who, as far as I'm aware, was injured, wasn't he? Hence he missed the fighting fifth.
He was lame. Henderson did say he was lame with that bruising at the fat line.
In sport, you can understand questioning whether a horse, an athlete, can come back and be as good as they were. That's all Luke was saying. It's my understanding, the last couple of pieces of work, that they've seen the old Constitution Hill. So I really hope that what Michael's got to understand is everyone loves Constitution Hill. No one has got anything against Constitution Hill. He's potentially the superstar in our sport. No one has got anything against him, but a lot of people get very frustrated the way it played out, which is such a shame. I hope he comes and blows Lossiemouth away, which he might well do, because if he's as good as he's been at home on those last couple of pieces of work, in my opinion, he could give Lossiemouth 17 pounds and beat her, let alone 7.
David, it's interesting. It's not just Michael Buckley. Matilda Boynville in the Racing Post very pointedly ready to shut people up, leaving it to the horse to shut them up.
It's great, this though, isn't it? I love this. This is what sport's all about. Love it.
The jump scene in particular, we love the doubters. The trainers love the doubters. And the Constitution Hill team, David, are finding plenty at the minute.
Exactly. And I think Ed was outlining some very good reasons as to why people... let's not forget, people are putting money on these horses. They're entitled to raise doubts about them when they're putting their own money on the line. And, if you're having a bet on this Christmas hurdle and you're thinking Constitution Hill, is he going to turn up like the horse that won the champion hurdle the best part of 2 years ago now? And that's how long ago it is since he's run to these really high ratings. Even in victory in this race last year, I think he only ran to something like 148. It was essentially a walkover for him last year. And then Ed listed all the issues that he's had since. So anybody that is putting their own hard-earned money down, they're entitled to question whether this horse is as good as what he was. And it is time for them to put up or shut up. And we will see whether he can do what he used to be able to. And I'll be honest, I'm still one of the doubters. So I'm going to need to be silenced on Boxing Day. So we will see.
What do you say? Wise up, David. Wise up. Come on.
An irate interview. Fran, what are you expecting to see from Constitution Hill off the back of this preparation on Boxing Day?
I don't know. It's very, very simple, but I'm looking at the current odds, 5-4 Lossiemouth. I think if you're going to unload and take a chance against Constitution Hill on his return to action, it's the day to do it. The mare, £7 off her benefit of a recent run, a very impressive run. I'd say she's only come to her peak for all that. She's got a lot to find with Constitution Hill and ratings. I just think at the current betting odds, I'd be unloading on Lossiemouth. And if Constitution Hill comes to beach by 10 lengths, so be it.
Yeah, that's the thing with Lossiemouth. She's arriving here race fit, in peak form. It's a bold move to take him on, though, isn't it? She was the last one put in. Will he hit the end at around 9:40? It was a late decision, but there were easier prizes up for grabs for her. Bold move by Connection to come and take him on.
I can understand why they're doing it, and I would agree with what the lads have said there. I mean, if Constitution Hill is going to get beaten, this is probably the day to beat him. He's been off the track for a year. Maybe he looks as good as he ever was at home, but we don't know how good he was or how good he is. And as John said, the only time we've seen him in the last 12 months, in this race last year, he was nowhere near his best to win it. So we don't know if he is as good as he was 18 months ago. Maybe he is. Hopefully he is. But if he isn't, Lossiemouth, she comes there fit and firing. we still kind of don't know how good she is, because every time she turns up, she wins fairly easily. She hasn't really had a proper hard race yet, and you know she's at the top of her game. He's got a bit to prove. I'd be with Fran. I think like if she can't beat him this weekend, she won't beat him in a champion hurdle. So you know, I think this is the day to get him beaten if he's going to be beaten, and I would think the values with Lassie Mouth here definitely.
Tactically, the race sets up really well, doesn't it? You know that Constitution Hill's going to go out in front, and she's going to sit there and be ridden like she was in the Hatton's Grace. And I mean, obviously, she's up against a different rival than the likes of Tiapu, who obviously the way that Hatton's Grace panned out didn't suit him. But it's just going to be so interesting when they turn for home. You know, she's still going to be sat there pulling double, and then when Nico really asks Constitution Hill to stretch, we're just going to see what she's got. And it's just a real fantastic race that's setting up nicely.
I'm just sending a message here, Audie. Dear Buckers, please listen to Fran and Billy on Sporting Life.
DJ as well. DJ as well. Three doubters. Three doubters on the...
He'll beat her. He'll beat her.
Fran, from your experience, how good a gauge will Nico de Boinville be able to get if the work at home is back on track? Do you know at home? Would you know that you're going there with the Constitution Hill of old?
Look, you get a vibe off from Dave. Obviously, Nicky Henderson's got fantastic gallops, probably some of the best grass gallops in the country, that they can get a really good read of him at home. And it's the feel that Nico would be getting from him that would excite you if he is back to his best, if he's giving you that vibes where he can jump on the bridle halfway up the gallop and pick up his rivals. And you'd imagine having waited this long with him that they're not going to run him unless they're totally happy. So it's going to be fascinating, isn't it? We all want to see him back. We all want to see him do what he can do as well. Nicky Henderson, see you then. 3 champion hurdles. He brought him, resurrected him a couple of occasions, didn't he? So he's in the right camp to do it. I just think the fact of running must allude to him back working well and giving Nico the feel that he used to get off him a couple of seasons ago.
You do feel that we should be raising a glass of Malbec to Willie and Richie for coming over. Otherwise, it was a Christmas hurdle. He'd be taking on Lump Sum and Burdett Road and winning at 1-12 again. Boxing Day, this time round, we're going to learn so much more, or so much about where Constitution Hill is right now, which is tremendous.
I think it'll capture the public's imagination this week. You look at the time of it as well, early in the day, long before the football starts, with the King George as well having 11 runners. That, from a big picture point of view, is sensational.
And it's over in time for the kids to watch Tiddler as well. It's great news for the
What time's
household. That's on at 3 o'clock. You're in the clear. Straight after King's speech. You'll be straight on after that, Ed. We'll be well done on ITV by then. Let's talk the Ladbrokes King George's 6. Fascinating race. A good sized field. 11 runners go to post. 3 defections. The final declaration stage. Outgo Ahoy Senor. Last year's winner Hewitt and Royal Pagal, who we learned at the weekend. Ben Chamberlain, a King George, which has got a bit of everything.
Yeah, I don't think it's probably got the Gold Cup with it. I don't think it's a vintage quality King George, but it's just what you want on Boxing Day again, because our audience open up the paper on a Saturday morning or a Boxing Day morning, and the first thing they'll look at is, can I have an each way bet in the big race of the day? And the King George this year, absolutely you can. The biggest field since 2009, full of interest, so many elements to it. The French add real spice to this, Audie, because everyone will remember what Il Francais did last time, and the other one, the Cotin one's got a huge reputation and he's enormous himself as well. You've got the Irish Invasion, and you've got the horse I'd love to see win it for a number of reasons. I think he might. The Galloping Grey on Boxing Day. The audience are just going to love Grey Dawning, aren't they? Absolutely love him. The way he jumps, the way he looks, and he could be the perfect King George result. And I think he's got a great chance.
We've probably got 2 chances of keeping the prize in Britain. Grey Dawning 1, L'Empresse, the other leading player, especially on time form ratings. He's bang up there. I think he's either top rated or second top rated. L'Empresse. Is the King George going to stay at home, David Johnson?
I don't think it is. I have actually backed L'Empresse anti-post, so I'm hopeful that he could hold on. And there are certain positives about him, you know, in terms of where he is. He probably is, in terms of what he's achieved, the best British staying chaser at the moment. And that run in the Gold Cup, he was better than the result. I know he only finished only 4th, beating about 15 lengths or so. But I think Charlie Dutch was a little bit too aggressive on him, and the race ended up being a real test of stamina that suited the closers a little bit more. But there's just that niggling doubt about coming back right-handed. If you remember a couple of years ago, I was keen on him for this race and backed him, and he was going to run really well, wasn't he, until he unseated his rider at the last. But I think Braverman's Gain did have him beaten. And I'm just wondering if there's a real good horse in here, a potential Gold Cup type that might just have his measure. And I think Spillane's Tower is so interesting when you look at that, the strength of that reappearance form. You know, he's beaten the Gold Cup winner. He's just behind the potential next Gold Cup winner. And I think it's really interesting that the McManus team have decided to split their aces over Christmas. And this looks a really good spot for Spillane's Tower. So I'm happy to side with him. I think in terms of all the potential, he is really the one that's going the right way.
Two runners for JP. Spillane's Tower. Jimmy might have been expecting concern about the ground, but it doesn't look like he's going to run as long as there's not a firm patch, I think was the final quote that he said. I don't think there'll be a firm patch on Boxing Day. There's Corbett's Cross in there as well. Is it a King George that's going to be heading back with your dad to Martinstown?
every chance of it, isn't it? It's fascinating. Obviously, Corbett's Cross, a little bit of a forgotten horse. Obviously, won very well at Cheltenham last year. Only had one run at Wexford this season, and the fact they're pitching him in with Derek O'Connor back on board is fascinating as well, Dave. As you know, he's a high cruising speed as well. Spillane's Tower, Jimmy Mangan, Monty's Pass 2003 Grand National, wasn't it? When he gets a good one, he can train him like a lot of operators, as we say here in Ireland. But he's totally unexposed at 3 miles, Spillane's Tower. When he won at Punchestown after winning the Will of Warm at Fairyhouse, he was better at the distance. And with the benefit, as Jono said about running in the Durkin Chase to form that race as well, he's got experience of racing at speed as well in open companies. So he is probably the most exciting. If you're looking for the battle-hardened horse that again, will enjoy a flat 3 miles, Banbridge, that was a cracking run behind Energamy when he took a unfortunate fall at the last swell. And if he's going to have a big day at 3 miles, Kempton looks tailor-made for him. So I'd say it could be an Irish invasion anyway, but which one will win? I'm happy enough to watch it rather than back on it.
She'll take a stronger view. That would be an Irish tip. You wouldn't find the members of the Irish Tipping Association. I don't want to see you thrown out for tipping a British horse, but which one of those 3 Irish runners are going to come out on top in the King George?
Put my neck on the line, Dave. I would be going for Spillane's Tower, I think. I think there's just an awful lot to like about this horse. Certainly his comeback effort was tremendous. And 3 miles around Kempton should be right up his street. I mean, his 4 wins over fences have all been on right-handed tracks. He's his Punchestown, Fairyhouse, those kind of tracks, particularly effective there. And 3 miles around Kempton should be ideal for him. I certainly wouldn't rule out Banbridge. I think he's got a big chance. I see they've got cheek pieces back on, which is interesting. He won in them last season, but that was over 2 miles. I thought they put him on just to sharpen up on that occasion, but clearly they feel that maybe he needs them at this point. He has won around the track before. Good chance, I'd say, Paul Townend might ride him. He's ridden him already this season, so if he's there to ride Lossiemouth, I wouldn't be at all surprised if he took the mount, and obviously he wouldn't be any hindrance to him. Corbett's Cross, I think, I'm not quite sure he's going to be classy enough to win in King George. He was very impressive in the National Hunt Chase, but I think the balance of his form leaves him with a little bit to find in this company. It's a big day for him. We'll find out how good he is. And I wouldn't entirely rule out Envoy Allen. He's a totally forgotten horse, but he did win the J and Wind it Down Royal. Now, I suspect he's a little bit better when he's fresh. His real good runs of late have come off a longer break than what he's going to have here. But at the same time, the yard is flying. Kempton should suit him. He didn't run very well in the King George the last time he tried it, but everything would suggest that Kempton really should suit him. So I wouldn't put anybody off backing him at a big price, but I do think Spillane's Tower is the horse to beat.
And before I get the tip, just a quick line from you, Fran, about the French Challenger, particularly Ile Francais was so brilliant in the Coteau Star last year, but bombed out twice. Two recent runs, complete blowouts. They said they couldn't get to the bottom of the latest one at Auteuil. Can that happen with horses? Could you see him bouncing back and returning to what looked to be a tip-top chase that we saw last year?
Yeah, it's possible, Dave. And the fact they're travelling over to Kempton, is it in hope that he's going to reproduce his best form at the track where he was so impressive when he won that Novice Chase last season, or they're very confident going there that he's back to his best? Maybe it's a combination of both. It'd be very hard to back him at his current odds for me based on what we've seen this season. I think it's more watching brief as well. We know when he's on song, he can be very good, but it's going to be a different scenario with a bigger field, more pace pressure, what to do in him, to let him stride on. He's going to ensure, I would think, a good gallop as well. And maybe the other French horse of Cottons could be the more suitable, maybe a little bit
What's it
under
called,
the
Fran?
radar. Juntas Cananas.
Lovely.
Is where you need Scoop.
And
Puntos
pro-
Ganamos.
Ganamos, there you go.
Beautiful.
Is the owner going to go and attack you as well as your podium?
Probably.
But for me, it'd be watching brief at Ile Francais. It'd be hard to face into him. Actually, surprised he's as short as he is at 5-1 currently.
Yeah, I think he bled last time, didn't he? And apparently it's not the first time that he's done it. And you look back at that Feltham, or the Cowtow Star as it's called now, and it doesn't sort of stack up really as well as what you would have hoped when he looked so good at the time, does he, with the horses that he's beaten? And yeah, I'm like Fran, I'm very surprised he's quite as short as what he is, given what's gone wrong in his career since then.
Yeah, and I think that the Noel George team have just been a little bit quiet of late, which would worry me. I think the other one, Puntos Ganamos, at 16-1 would be the better of the two French, I think, for those prices.
Well, the good news is, Ed, I can't see any of your blacklisted trainers win the King George. You will be speaking to the winning connections after the great race. But who are you going to be speaking to? Who's going to be winning this Boxing Day showpiece?
The Skeltons. I think Grey Dawning will go on favourite. I'm delighted to hear the Irish tipping the Irish. They can all. I'd be amazed if Grey Dawning on Boxing Day, the gorgeous Grey, doesn't go off favourite for the King George. And in the Skeltons, I trust, Audie. I think 3 miles round Kempton is made for this horse. The Betfair Chase wasn't. I'm not sure the Gold Cup is, but I think this is absolutely perfect for Grey Dawning. I hope he's come out of Haydock okay. In Dan Skelton, I trust. And I think at 4-1 or whatever he is now, I think he's a great bet. I really do. I'd back him to win and Puntos Gamanos each way at 16s.
It's a third different pronunciation we've had of that one. I'll put the race card number out on the subtitles.
Rely on Scoop. Scoop will tell us. We'll just wait.
He's actually upstairs. I'll give him a nudge very shortly. Now, Ed, I genuinely think it's such a sad decision that Sir Gino goes chasing.
I told you.
I don't understand. I genuinely don't get when you've got it's got a time form Big P. When they're fighting fifth doing handstands, you've got the potential champion hurdle. Why not wait once? Anyway, he's going chasing. But my goodness, that wayward lad, Novice Chase, Ed, at Kempton on the 27th is bubbling away to be an absolute classic.
Humdinger. Absolute humdinger. Thank you to the Irish for changing the Novice Chase plan and pissing off Willie Mullins so Ballyburn comes here, because this is an absolute belter of a head-to-head. And there are head-to-heads left, right and centre. This is what's different this year, it seems. People seem happier for the good of the sport to take each other on. It's great. There are matchups galore to look forward to, and this is the one I'm looking forward to more than any other. And I'm hoping that Fran and Billy tip up Ballyburn, because Sir Gino, I think, is an absolute certainty, Audie. I really do. I know it's his chasing debut. I think he's an absolute rocket over 2 miles, while Ballyburn, when he won at Punchestown, he didn't look like a 2-miler to me that day. I know he won convincingly in the end, but he was Paul Townend was at him fairly early. And I just think that Sir Gino is just an absolute speedball. And we know about his schooling at home. And if he can't beat Ballyburn over 2 miles, I give up.
There will be a resignation on the 27th. Is this what drama on this podcast? Billy, big question to you before we talk about it. Why did the HRA get rid of that Racing Post Novice Chase at Leopardstown? Because it's upset Willie, it's upset Gordon. It's booted the Henry VIII and the wayward lad over this side of the Irish Sea, no end.
Oh, no, and looking at the declarations for Stephen's Day, the race that's replaced it, which is the 3-mile Grade 1 Novice Chase, has 4 runners, 3 of which are trained by Gordon Elliott. So it doesn't look a particularly bright decision at the moment, Artie. I was surprised when they let it go. And yeah, I just don't know. Yes, they were talking about small fields and what have you, but like I said, the race that replaced it is no better. So watch this space. I wouldn't be at all surprised if that comes back into the calendar sooner rather than later.
We're surprised now, Billy, if Sir Gino beats Ballyburn.
I'll be stunned if Sir Gino beats Ballyburn, to be honest. I know Ed is a huge fan, and look, I'm a big fan of Sir Gino. I think he's a smashing horse, but I think Ballyburn's a bit special. I did think, watching him at Punchestown, that I'd rather come back to 2 miles than go up to 3 with him. He just, he goes a real good gallop. He jumped, touch wood, he jumped really well at Punchestown. He's also a point-to-point winner, so he has loads of experience over fences. Let's not forget, he beat the Supreme winner over 2 miles at Leopardstown last year at the Dublin Racing Festival, so he's not short of speed. I don't think Kempton is his ideal track, but again, He has valuable chase experience. I think he'll come on a ton for the Punchestown run, because at that time, a handful of Willies were getting beaten. They were needing the run, and he looked like a horse that would come on a ton for me. So I think he's the best novice chaser I've seen so far this season. And while I think Sergino will win plenty of races over fences, I think this is a huge ask first time up for him.
And we've touched upon the scrapping of that Grade 1 at Leopardstown. Also, the Turners becoming a handicap rather than a Grade 1 at the festival. It's only a decision to make with horses like Ballyburn, isn't it? It's 2 or 3. You can't go the intermediate. What do you think of him at Campton on Box Day? Is he going to have the speed to beat Sergino?
He's definitely got the speed, Dave. I know the Upperman trip when he won it at the festival last year as well. He didn't go for the Supreme Novice Hurl, but you got to remember when he won his bumper and in some of his hurl races, he can be very, very keen. He can be a foregoing type, and I think actually fast run 2 miles could suit him very well, and particularly over fence at least. And we don't know how good he is. We don't know how good Gino is. They both have big engines, and Ballyburn with his experience of chasing in the past from the point-to-point spear as well. And as Willie said, Willie Munns for taking runs. They're improving markedly for their season debuts as well. This horse, he got beat last year in a maiden hurl. He can only improve off that. And whilst we know race at Leopardstown over the 2 miles, Kempton has gained, and hopefully the Arkle Chase will gain, obviously, if Ballyburn ends up being a 2 mile rather than going for what probably would have been a soft touch where the Turners would be there in March if they all get there in one piece.
Do you think Ballyburn could win a champion hurdle, Fran?
No.
Do you think Sergino could have won a champion hurdle?
We don't know.
No, we might still find out.
And it's fascinating to see Sergino as well. You're training him to be a quick hurdler early in the season and switch mid-season into making his chasing debut at Kempton. Sharp track, quick fences,
good ground.
Scenario.
Good ground. It's going to be a speed test on 27.
Are you slightly worried that if Constitutional bombs out in the Christmas hurdle, that Sergino might be a late defector from to retain the novice chase status?
I'm not actually, because I think the Donnellys are a big factor. And listen, Ballyburn's a very good horse. I'm half joking to wind up the Irish. And it's going to be an epic clash, and Ballyburn is very, very good. Do I think he'll revert back? No, I don't, because in the yellow and black, they've got Amsterdam and they've got State Man. So I think this is the plan now. We know what they think of Sergino. He gets the allowances, and he's listen, they're both seriously exciting. That is just going to be such a great clash. And for Wellchild's sake, I hope Sergino wins.
It's almost the kind of race. The only way you can spoil it from a watching point of view is by having a bet, isn't it? You know, if you're watching it as a neutral, it's just going to be really a great spectacle, because you've got Sergino getting the £6, obviously, as a 4-year-old, but he's conceding the experience, where Ballyburn, the question about whether he's quite as good over 2 miles as what he is 2.5. It's just so many of these questions that normally we spend all winter asking them and we only get them answered in March, whereas we're just finding out so much earlier. And that is what is making the sport this season so much more exciting than what it's been for 3 or 4 years, I think.
I think if Constitution Hill wins, Audie, Sergino will go off pretty short, because we know they work together. We know what they've done together. And if Ballyburn could do what Sergino does working with Constitution Hill, I'd be very surprised.
You're trying to this Sergino. Amsterdam's doing an awful lot of heavy lifting as substitute for Sergino in this. And the way Willie spoke in the column before on Sporty Life, I don't think he thought he was sending a champion hurdle horse to the races that day. Maybe he's blossomed since, but we can find out. That's what the great game does.
Where do you stand on this one, Audie? Is the neutral invigilator?
I think if Sergino is to beat Ballyburn, it'd be around Kempton that day, but we're not seeing him jump a fence in public, Ed. I know people tell he's an absolute jumps like a stag. AP McCoy, I mean, he wouldn't be calling geese swans, would he? Regularly, he was blown away by that schooling session. I just can't wait to watch the race. I just think it's so good. I mean, we are so reliant again. It would have been a penalty kick, but but that's unfair. Rubo's in there, isn't there? Some interesting horses, but if Mullins hadn't brought Ballyburn, again, we'd have been looking at like a 1-2, 1-3 chance. We'd have been 1-12 Constitution Hill. It's the fact that Willie's coming over with these horses, that he's got such strength in depth that he's not going to throw all his aces in on one hand, that he's bringing them over, just adds another dimension to the Christmas programme this year. And I cannot wait. Now, the great game is all about networks. Fran Berry, you've got the best network. You were dining with Gordon Elliott. You took Sunday supper, as William Darby would call it, with Gordon on this weekend, and you confirmed you do know his Welsh National plans.
Yeah, David, as it stands, and this is obviously traveling permitting as well. Bit of a problem for Irish runners currently with Holyhead out of action as well. They got to travel, and that's a factor obviously for viewers and listeners to bear in mind. It's taken an extra 2 days to get to England for Irish runners. They got to go down through Rosslare, and obviously you're in the more open part of the Irish Sea, so weather is a big factor with getting horses across. So just something to bear in mind. But as it stands, Gordon is intent on running his 2 horses. Still Zucchini, surprise winner of the Tri-Town Chase, unexposed horse, but if the ground gets testing, it would be a little bit attrition from, I would imagine, at Chepstow. But where it all began, won the Irish National trial in impressive fashion at Punchestown last year. It sounds like he's an intended runner as well. We've not seen him since running in the Irish Grand National, and he's got that unexposed profile, if you like, going into the Welsh National. He'd be interesting. The McNeil family obviously own him, so you would imagine it's been a target for a while.
Interesting. And Ed, I know you're putting your Union Jack down for the Welsh National. You think this could be heading back to Ireland?
Yeah, it's difficult at this stage because you don't know quite who's going to turn up. Mogbeg Genius is probably the right favourite, and that horse is due a big performance. But I just think the performances from where it all began, he smacked stamina, the run in the Kinmure, ran in the Irish National. If this has been the aim, then he's a big runner. The horse that caught my eye the other day in the Veterans Chase, he's probably got no chance. He's a 66 to 1 chance, I think, is Paint the Dream, who's nearly as old as you and I, Audie. And but they might target him. He's Welsh through and through. I just thought he might be half interesting because it's another big handicap that might not have a full field, which is very unusual for a race of that nature, which is a bit depressing, really.
It's happening an awful lot, isn't it, this season? Let's talk Leopardstown now, where there's some absolutely fantastic racing, as you would expect. Billy, we've got Gaelic Warrior back in the Paddy Rewards Club chase. Seemingly slightly belated return to action, but there's been no news of any hold-up or anything. It looks like this was always a plan. Are you expecting fireworks from him on the 27th?
So no, Dave, is the short answer. Look, I think he's a smashing horse, and I think he's probably, there's a good chance that he's the best 2-mile chaser in Ireland at the moment. I know Energamine was back to something near his best in the hilly way, but I think Gaelic Warrior, based on his performance in the Arkle last year, that marks him out as I think the best on this side of the Irish Sea at the moment. But as we've seen before, Leopardstown isn't really his track. He did perform remarkably well at Cheltenham. I think the hood seemed to make a difference. He's declared it again next week, so we'll see if he can jump straighter in the hood, or as straight as he did at Cheltenham. And if he can put up that sort of performance, then he is the horse to beat, definitely. But this is a pretty stiff task for his first run back. It looks like a fairly stiff field. He's up against the likes of Found 50, who won that Grade 1 at this meeting last year, the 2-mile Grade 1. Again, Leopardstown probably isn't his track either. He does tend to jump out to his right a bit. He did markedly at Navan the last day where he scraped home. You have the likes of Marine National, another horse with a little bit to prove, having got beaten in his reappearance. But I suppose the horse that beat him, Colicus, didn't let that form down in the Tingle Creek. Dino Blue ran okay last time. She'll strip fitter. Blue Lord is in there. Captain Guinness is in there, who disappointed in his reappearance, but he's a horse that's bounced back from a bad effort in the past. So it's a deep field. If Gaelic Warrior is back to his best, he'll be very hard to beat. But like I said, round Leopardstown first time, I'm not sure. More of a watching brief, I think. Looking forward to seeing him, but I don't think I'll be backing him at a really sharp price first time up.
How do you see the race, Fran?
Yeah, the thing about Gaelic Warrior obviously is everything Willie said about going left-handed Leopardstown, that bad experience pre-winning the Arkle Chase at Cheltenham at the track last year. And I can see why Connections put the hood on him at Cheltenham, because he was actually bet at Leopardstown before he started that occasion behind Factor File. He got very, very worked up in the parade ring pre-race. He'd almost ran his race, and the way he raced Dave in the first half mile, he was mentally gone on that occasion. So for Willie to get him back, drop him and trip and win the Arkle in the manner that he did, I wouldn't be overly concerned about Leopardstown for him on this occasion, provided he behaves in the preliminaries. That's going to be key. But like Willie says, current odds of even money, I'm very happy to watch him, just with them little niggles about him. But he's got a huge engine. Found 50. Obviously, he's got the benefit of recent runs this season as well. Marine National, I couldn't have him on my mind. Trainer likes talking him up, but I just didn't like the way he went through the race at all at Naas recently, and he needs to sharpen up a lot. And Captain Guinness, Leopardstown 2 mile 1 furlong, that one extra furlong tends to find him out in the closing stages there as well. And if you had to back one at present, probably Dino Blue, last year's winner, maybe the value, but it all centres really around what Gaelic Warrior turns up on the day.
David, Gaelic Warriors returning to a 2 mile division. We've got a Nergamine back and back to winning ways in the Hillyway. John Bond doing what John Bond does in the UK. If Gaelic Warriors should come back and win, I mean, that'd be another division that's coming to the boil really nicely for the rest of the season.
Yeah, very much so. And it does look interesting that they've taken a view fairly early in the season, didn't they, that Gaelic Warrior was going to come back and have a 2 mile campaign. You know, they didn't bother turning up in the John Durkan, and they scratched him from the King George. And so it just all depend on how he goes here. And he's one of those horses that last year he looked so good on occasions, didn't he? Remember that chasing debut, and then obviously the Arkle as well. But he had a couple of horrors as well. He didn't look good in the Ryanair when he was turned over, and obviously the race at Leopardstown where he was beaten by Back to File. He was just sort of in big trouble a long way out there, wasn't he? So you're not 100% sure what you're going to get with him. I think looking at that race, I was quite interested in Founder 50. I was impressed with how well he went through the Navan race for such a long way last time. You'd have been so surprised watching it sort of 2 out, 3 out that he was only going to win by a neck. And I think obviously you look at the field size, you get in the 3 places each way on Founder 50. It's the time of year where you can sort of put them in the each way multiples. It's worth going to the bookies and rather than just ruining your betting accounts, isn't it, at this time of year? So I'll be looking to play Founder 50 each way in that Paddy's Rewards Club chase.
I want to talk Savills Chase. Is it part of the ITV coverage on the 28th, the Leopardstown feature?
Yes, I mean, the 28th is going to be a belter with the Newbury card. That will probably come to it. The Challow could be one of the races of the whole Christmas period. But yeah, the Savills is with us live on ITV.
And it's round 2, File Galloping Deschamps. From the John Durkan, the younger legs gained a day. Ed Chamberlain is galloping on a raw back and win the Savills. Probably.
Tough one to call. But you're also a brave man, aren't you, to take on Gallopin Deschamps at Leopardstown at Christmas. He put in a couple of the performances of the season there last season, and I thought that was a really good reappearance. And Willie's team were happy with that, weren't they, Fran? And this is absolutely, I know he's brilliant at Cheltenham, but this is absolutely his backyard.
Yeah, and for me, it's a funny thing to say about a dual Gold Cup winner, but for me, as you said, Ed, Leopardstown, Gallopin Deschamps, that's where he excels. Then fences down the back straight. We see when Paul cut him loose last year after getting beaten to John Durkan, what he could do. And he's going to put even the likes of Factor File, I would imagine, or some bit of pressure, you would think. That long run though from the third last at regulation ditch at the third last, all that big long sweep to the second last, that's going to be key. You could envisage maybe a scenario where Mark Walsh gets up behind Gallopin Deschamps and landing after the second last fence. And if that materialises, I don't know what way I'd call it down to last fence, but I really hope they get to that stage of the race where they're going to be eyeballing each other down to last and see what happens. Factor File, look, he's been around there. We saw what he done to Gaelic Warrior last year, albeit maybe he wasn't his best by any means, but he's a huge engine. You love the way he hit the line in Durkan, but Gallopin did cut out running into John Durkan and maybe paid a price for that late on that occasion at a track that doesn't bring out the best in him at Punchestown.
Yeah, how do you see it? We've got Jerry Colomb gone earlier, expecting him to be back on song as well. And I am Maximus, who I've gone to a big number in the Grand National. He's entry bound again. This is part of his preparation there. But I suppose there could always be a plan B if he was to sweep past this lot like he did, finish like he did at Aintree. It's a fascinating Savills Chase.
Fascinating race, yeah. There's we have the quantity in the King George. I think we have the quality in the Savills, to be honest, Artie. I mean, this is the race I'm most looking forward to over Christmas. Hopefully they'll all get there. It would be great if they got a drop of rain at Leopardstown just to ensure that ground will be quick enough, I'd say, listening to the going reports there. So, yeah, I'd agree with the lads like Gallopin Deschamps. I thought he ran a cracker in the John Durkan, 2 miles 3. It's not even quite 2.5 miles at Punchestown. Not really his thing. But loads to like about Fact to Fight. He's a huge horse with a huge engine. Going back up to 3 miles will really suit him. But if I had to, and I don't think there'll be much between them, I would just come down on the side of Galopin Des Champs at the moment. Fascinated to see how Aya Maximus will get on. They ran him in it last year. He wasn't quite good enough, but certainly his performances towards the end of last season would suggest that he has the ability to develop into a Gold Cup horse. We know he has his quirks. We know he tends to jump markedly left at times, but there's a massive engine in there. And Jerry Colomb has a bit to prove for me after Down Royal. I was disappointed with him. The most disappointing aspect about it was I thought he was beaten 5 out at Down Royal, to be honest. He looked like he was struggling a long way from home. Maybe they found a reason for that. But again, at the same time, Galopin Des Champs blew him away in this race last year, so I'd be surprised if he was good enough to beat Galopin Des Champs. But again, race I can't wait to watch.
David, is there any look for Fact to File from you? Can you see him confirming his superiority from the Durkin?
I genuinely don't think there'll be much between them, which is pretty much sitting on the fence, which is how the betting is, isn't it? But I think for the reasons that the fellas have outlined, you just have to favour Galopin Des Champs, given what he's done time and time again in this race and at this track. So, but again, it's just another race that whatever happens, it sets it up really nicely for the rest of the season.
Talking of Richard Chamberlain, the 2 mile hurdle, we've got Brighter Days Head v State Man, the rematch. And surely if she beats State Man again, Sergina will be switched back to the champion hurdle. Irrespective of what happens in the Wayward Lad.
More importantly, if she does, she must go for the champion hurdle. Surely, please, end all of that nonsense that we heard last time. She'll be better going left-handed. You just sense there's ominous faith in State Man to come on an absolute ton from that performance. I think it'll be close because I think she's better than she showed that day. So another rematch I'm really looking forward to. I couldn't have a bet with confidence in the Savills, and I certainly couldn't have a bet with confidence in this rematch. But my God, I'm looking forward to them going head to head again. It would be brilliant if they jumped the last locked in an almighty battle. And just imagine Jerry Hannon on the run in there. It could be absolutely sensational.
It boils down to, doesn't it, if you believe what Patrick Mullins thinks, that State Man blew up going after the last that day, and that he'll come on a ton for it. How do you see it? Does he take his revenge?
I think I'd be surprised if he got beaten here now, to be honest. I think 2 miles around Leopardstown is, we know how effective he is. As Fran was saying there, he thinks Galopin Des Champs is possibly better around Leopardstown than Cheltenham. I think State Man is definitely better around Leopardstown than Cheltenham. This is his backyard, if you want. He's really effective around here. I think he'll come on a ton for the run. I thought even without the mistake at the last in the Morgiana, he might have still hung on to beat Brighter Days Ahead. Very good mare that she is, but I think State Man is just a bit better, certainly around here. I think it's significant the fact that the Elliott camp had also entered Brighter Days Ahead in the 3 mile race. I wouldn't be surprised if she ends up going that trip in future. And also the other factor in this race was when she did win at Punchestown, she got a superb ride from Jack Kennedy, who unfortunately is on the sidelines again now. Sam Ewing is an able deputy, but Sam Ewing does not have the big race experience of Jack Kennedy, and I think that is also going to be a factor in this race. But I think all things being equal, I'd be very surprised if State Man got beaten here. This is him on the comeback trail, I reckon.
And is he going to be back on track after this?
I think so, Dave. And the thing about it is, as Willie said, day 4 Leopardstown. Ed, for your viewers at home now, when you're doing Leopardstown, you're going to be right on the inside track. It gets very short running, and State Man just excels around there. So I know Gordon Elliott's got a pacemaker potentially in for the mare King Kingsfield in the same ownership, but State Man, Leopardstown, that second last hurl down to last, he just excels around there. And again, that's where he's at his best. And with the benefit of that run, he's got everything in his favour to go and get revenge in Brighter Days Ahead. Now, if she steps forward as a 5-year-old and beats him here, she's definitely a legitimate champion hurl contender. But when you win a Morgiana hurl, and connections come out straight away and say that they're thinking of the 2.5 mile race at Cheltenham, the Mayor's hurl, I think State Man's got everything going for him to get his revenge and get back on the score sheet here.
Fran, you're close to that yard, and I love reading the interviews and everything like that. And I think I know what the answer to this from the people I speak to. If State Man met Lossiemouth and was giving her £7, who would you be on?
Lossiemouth.
Not the answer I was expecting, but there we go.
David, I'm going to ask you a very unfair question. Right now, Lossiemouth is 7-4 favourite for the Unibet Champion Hurdle. Who's going to emerge as favourite for the Cheltenham showpiece at the end of this Christmas programme?
I think Lossiemouth will hold on to that favouritism when I think what's going to happen in the Christmas hurdle. I think she'll beat Constitution Hill. I don't think you can be sure enough that he retains all his ability given what's happened. State Man, I'm not as convinced as the other lads that he's going to have it all his own way here in the December hurdle. I've actually backed Brighter Days Ahead for the champion hurdle. I've seen a drift even more since I've actually backed her given the comments. But I think, I think she's got a real good chance of turning him over. I fully accept the theory that State Man's going to come on for the run, but he's not usually gone there short of a run, has he? And he didn't run that far below form. And it's just a huge thing getting that £7. And I think they're going to have to give it a good go. Like Fran says, they've got a pacemaker in there because to make sure that State Man doesn't have his own way. And I do think Brighter Days Ahead has got a real squeaker turning him over at about 5-2, 11-4.
Can you imagine if she does and they're still saying they'll go for the mares? I mean, can you imagine?
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? And I think that was what Gordon said afterwards. I forget where it was that he was interviewed. He said, but it was put to him, if you beat State Man again, you've surely got to go for the champion hurdle, haven't you? And he said something along the lines of, have you not heard of a filly called Lossiemouth? So I think she's the one that they're all running scared of at the minute.
Fantastic time of year. You're on telling more than the newsreaders this Christmas, Ed. So much to look forward to.
Sorry about that.
Give us some of your other. What else are you looking forward to racing front rise this Christmas? Have you got any horse that's on your radar in particular as well?
Well, I'm really looking forward to that Challow at Newbury. Newbury do a cracking day on the 28th. Great family day out. And it's going to be interesting to see who turns up because for once, the British novices look okay. I'd wonder if they'd run both Regent Stroll and Potter's Charm because they're in the same ownership, even though they're with Nichols and Twiston Davis. The O'Neills hold a strong hand in that race. The Skeltons have got a new lion, but I'd probably always side with Nichols in the Challow. He's got such a great record in the race, but that could be an absolute humdinger. And probably my favourite day of the entire lot, Audie, is New Year's Day at Cheltenham. Over 30,000 people at Cheltenham on New Year's Day. It's an absolute belter of a day. The racing will be great. And horses to look out for. A couple of Henderson horses on my radar. I'm not sure we're going to see either of them. There was one called Attacker, who was in that handicap hurdle on Boxing Day. I think he's very well treated off. About 128, I think he's off. Had very good novice form. I'm not sure where they're going to go with him, so I don't think he's in that. That's what I was looking at the decks for Boxing Day. Attacker and a juvenile hurdler called Lumber, who we'll see at some point as well. But there are so many matchups and horses to look forward to, Audie. It's going to be absolutely spectacular, I think, over the next few days.
It is absolutely tremendous. David, what is going to be your festive highlight? And have you got the horse that you're looking forward to seeing in action over the week or so?
Yeah, I think there's obviously so much that we've talked about that looks so much to get excited about. But there's a horse running at Wetherby that I spotted on his reappearance. I thought, I really want to back this horse next time. And it's Moortown of Lucinda Russell's. He ran in the Novice Handicap Chase at Newbury behind Caliph de Burley. Caliph de Burley. And I just really impressed with the way that he jumped out in front, but patently went as though he was in need of the run. And when you see the gap between there towards this race on Boxing Day, you can sort of put the pieces together and think this was always something of a plan. So he's only got 3 rivals to beat, but he's a front runner. Very easy to see him getting out in front at Wetherby and being very difficult to pass. So I can't imagine he'll be a huge price, but I'd be surprised if he's beaten in that race. So it's Moortown at Wetherby on Boxing Day for me.
Brilliant. Cheers, DJ. Billy, festive highlight for you and a horse to watch out for?
Yeah, loads of looking forward to, Dave. Obviously, the Savills Chase is the race that I'm really looking forward to. There should be plenty of other cracking action. We're going to learn a lot over the coming days, hopefully. Very interesting juvenile hurdle at Leopardstown where Willie unleashes a couple of French recruits. Marcia is a particularly interesting one, carrying the colours of Kenny Alexander. The one horse that just, glancing through the declarations there this morning, one horse that I'm really looking forward to at Limerick on the 27th, there's a Grade 2 Mares Novice Chase there, the Dawn Run Novice Chase. Now, Gordon Elliott, she could be anything, it would be very much the one to beat, but Fran can probably tell you more about this one, but I'm really looking forward to a JP horse called Bioluminescence of Gavin Cromwell's. She disappointed on her last run last season, but she'd been very progressive prior to that. But she's every inch a chaser already, and she won over this 2 mile 6 race over hurdles at Limerick last year in March. I think the track will suit her. I think the ground will suit her, but I think she's a filly that'll improve a good bit for a fence. So I'm really looking forward to seeing her on the 27th of December.
So, from last but not least, Fran, yourself?
Yeah, bioluminescence, definitely very interesting at Limerick. I'd say she, could beat Gordon's mare in that. Back to Boards, trained by Willie Mullins, the opening maiden hurl at Leopardstown. For me, he was probably Willie's best bump horse last year. He made his debut winning the George Murna sales race at Fairy House on Easter Sunday. And he just streaked away to win by 15 or 16 lengths on debut. And he's back in a maiden hurl over 2 miles, the opening race at Leopardstown. And I think he could be an ideal horse for the 2.5 mile Novice at Cheltenham, perhaps. But we'll find out over 2 miles at Christmas what he can do, Dave. And the Paddy Power Chase is all it's worthy of mention on the 27th. Obviously, you got the Savills and all the good races that everybody spoke about. But Percival Le Gaulois, trained by Gavin Cromwell, I think shaped better than the bare result in Tri-Town Chase. He's 14-1. He won't be out of money for all that he can be frustrating. And then the bottom of the weights, my dinner companion last night gave me a little bit of a bollocking for telling racing TV viewers on Friday night that will do at 33-1 was an unexposed type for the Paddy Power Chase. Gigginstown House stood only 3 runs over fences over shorter trips. He'd be very interesting. He's still 25-1 with Sky Bet the last time I looked. And
Wow.
He's an interesting type. And if it all goes to pot over the few days, the last day of Limerick on the 29th, a 0-104 handicap chase. Aishan, a winner at the meeting last year, a dual winner at Limerick in the past. If the ground gets testing off a mark of 95 in a handicap chase for Sam Curling, he might get us out of trouble, Dave.
I can't believe it. That was mine as well. I can't believe we had the same horse, Fran, the one in the 0-104 at Limerick. On the...
any British horses you think might run well over Christmas, Fran? Any?
Sir Gino might be placed.
Okay, thank you.
And on that bombshell, thanks to DJ, to Fran and Billy. Thank you for listening. We all have a great Christmas. Happy New Year. I'm saying that because there might be a podcast between the Christmas and the New Year, but I won't be on it. But we'll be back in our regular Wednesday slot in the first week of January. And thanks for listening and be with us throughout the year.
Download the Sporting Life app for the best racing coverage, including live racing blogs, fast results, stable tours, trainer and jockey interviews, expert opinion and tips.